Ethan Cole had everything a man could dream of: power, wealth, and the world at his feet, but he still felt like the poorest soul alive. The billionaire who once ruled skylines now hid behind a grease-stained mirror, fixing broken engines in a forgotten corner of the city. Why would a man with everything choose to live like he had nothing? How could someone so admired fall so far from grace? And what secret pain drove him to trade diamonds for dust? The rhythmic clang of metal echoed through the dimly lit workshop as Ethan wiped sweat from his brow, his reflection barely visible in the cracked mirror before him. The scent of oil and burnt rubber filled the air, the same smell that once clung to his childhood. Once upon a time this scent meant survival, now it meant escape. He stared at his hands, once accustomed to signing billion-dollar contracts, now blackened with grease. But beneath the dirt lay the truth of who he'd always been. Not the mogul. Not the icon. Just a boy who had watched his mother die working the same kind of job he now pretended to have. Years earlier, a younger Ethan had watched his mother, Clara Cole, repair cars late into the night. "Money can buy comfort, Ethan," she'd whisper, tightening bolts with trembling hands, "but it can never buy kindness." Those words haunted him, especially the night she collapsed, her wrench still clutched in her palm. The paramedics said her heart failed, but Ethan always blamed poverty. That night he vowed he'd never be poor again. He kept that promise. Too well. At 35, Ethan Cole was the name that made investors stand. Cole Motors dominated the market, his innovations shaping the future of luxury vehicles. But power has a price, and love proved costlier than all. Vanessa Carter, the woman he once thought his soulmate, exposed him on national television. "Did I love him?" she scoffed during a live interview. "Please. I loved the fame, not the man." The audience laughed. The world watched. And Ethan's soul fractured under the weight of humiliation. He turned off the TV, sat in silence, and repeated his mother's words like a prayer. "Money can buy comfort, but never kindness." That night, Ethan stood before his mirror one last time, dressed in a $1,000 suit, wearing a watch worth more than his first house, and saw not success but emptiness. He opened his laptop and transferred every company right to his board. No farewell speeches. No goodbyes. Just one man erasing himself. At dawn, Ethan Cole disappeared. By morning, headlines screamed. "Billionaire Ethan Cole missing, possible foul play suspected." But Ethan wasn't missing. He was reborn. As Ethan Blake, a poor mechanic. And for the first time, the world's richest man was finally free to search for something money could never buy. A love that wouldn't vanish once the truth came out. The rain fell like judgment. Ethan Cole, or rather Ethan Blake now, stepped off a bus that hissed like a dying animal. The once billionaire wore second-hand boots and carried nothing but a duffel bag and a broken wristwatch. He had walked out of penthouses and into puddles, but for the first time in years he felt alive. The small town of Rockwell was quiet, almost too quiet. Old signs flickered above rusted garages and fading motels. To anyone watching, he was just another drifter looking for work. But inside, Ethan battled a storm that no rain could wash away: guilt, fear, and the aching hope that maybe, just maybe, someone could love him for who he was beneath the lies. He pushed open the door of a rundown workshop labeled Daniel's Auto Repair. Inside, the air smelled of gasoline and time. A graying man hunched over an engine, humming an old blues tune. His hands were steady, worn, yet precise, the hands of someone who'd lived his whole life fixing what others broke. "Help you?" the man asked without looking up. "I'm looking for work," Ethan replied softly. "I can handle engines, transmissions too." The man finally turned. His name tag read Amara, Daniels. His eyes studied Ethan with suspicion and something else. Recognition, perhaps. "You any good with your hands, son?" Ethan forced a grin. "I've spent my life around cars." Mr. Daniels nodded, motioning to a busted sedan in the corner. "Then prove it." Ethan knelt beside the engine, every movement deliberate, every decision a memory. The last time he touched a car like this, it had been in a boardroom, surrounded by designers and executives, not oil and bolts. But this time it felt different. This time it felt real. Within minutes, the engine sputtered to life. Daniel's brow lifted slightly. Most folks would have called that scrap. Ethan shrugged. Sometimes all something needs is a second chance. The man looked at him closely, as though those words hit deeper than Ethan intended. "You start tomorrow, Blake. Pays not much." "That's fine," Ethan said quickly. "I'm not here for money." Mr. Daniels chuckled, shaking his head. "Nobody ever is, at first." That night, Ethan lay on a cot in the back of the workshop. The rain had stopped, but thunder rolled faintly in the distance. a warning of storms still ahead. He reached into his pocket and touched his mother's broken watch. The clock hands had stopped moving years ago, but to Ethan, it still marked time, not in seconds but in regrets. He whispered to himself, "If you want to find truth, live where lies can't afford rent." His mother's words echoed again, steadying his heart. Outside, unseen, a light flickered in the upstairs window, and a shadow moved. A young woman's voice drifted down softly. "Dad, who's the new guy?" Ethan looked up, and for the first time, met the eyes of Amara Daniels, the woman who would soon test everything he believed about truth, love, and forgiveness. Amara Daniels never trusted charm, especially from men who looked like they were running from something. From her bedroom window, she had watched the new mechanic wipe sweat off his forehead, move with quiet discipline and keep to himself. Something about him didn't fit this dusty little town. He worked too precisely, spoke too carefully, did too much. When she came downstairs that morning, her father was laughing, really laughing, for the first time in months. Ethan had just cracked a joke about car parts and heartbreak. Mr. Daniels was grinning, but Amara's eyes narrowed. "Dad," she interrupted, "since when do we hire strangers off the street?" Mr. Daniels glanced at her. "Since that stranger fixed a dead engine in 20 minutes. Ethan turned, offering a polite smile. "Morning." "Morning," she replied flatly, her tone like cold steel. "I hope you're planning to stay long enough for the ink to dry on your application. We don't need another runaway dreamer." Ethan froze for half a second, long enough for her to notice. "I'm not running," he said quietly. "I'm rebuilding." Her brow arched. "Rebuilding what?" He hesitated, gripping the rag in his hand tighter. "Myself." For a brief moment their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. It wasn't attraction, not yet. It was recognition, two people broken by trust and time. But Amara blinked it away first. She turned to her father. "Just be careful, Dad. Not everyone who looks poor is harmless." Her words stung Ethan, though he forced a light laugh. "And not everyone who looks rich is heartless." The air shifted, cold, sharp, electric. Hours later, Amara walked to the garage bringing coffee for her father. Ethan was alone, repairing a carburetor with surgical focus. She placed the cups on the table, but curiosity won over pride. "So, where are you from, Blake?" He didn't look up. "Nowhere important." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got right now." She folded her arms. "You talk like someone who's hiding a mansion behind a fake name." Ethan finally looked up, their eyes locked again. "Would it change anything if I were?" Her lips curved slightly, not in a smile but in warning. "Yeah. I'd walk away before you could lie to me." The silence that followed was louder than thunder. Later that night, Amara sat in her room sketching designs for a dream she no longer believed in, a scholarship to study automotive design. Her father's medical bills had ended that dream. She blamed the rich, those who owned everything and cared for nothing. But outside her window, that same poor mechanic was staring up at the stars, whispering a silent vow to prove that love could still exist without power, titles, or money. What neither of them knew was that fate had already written their collision, and one of them would bleed for the trut. Etched at the sound of rain on tin echoed through the garage like a steady heartbeat. It was a slow afternoon, the kind that stretched endlessly, blurring hours into sighs. Ethan stood at the workbench tuning an old carburetor, while Amara scribbled in a notepad across from him, pretending not to glance up every few minutes. She had told herself he was just another worker, temporary, mysterious, and possibly dangerous. But every time he smiled at her father's jokes or stayed late to clean up, her certainty cracked a little more. When she finally broke the silence, it wasn't with suspicion, but curiosity. "You're good with your hands," she said. "Most people around here just do the bare minimum." Ethan smiled faintly, not looking up. "I had a good teacher. Your dad." He hesitated. A long pause followed. "You could say that. He taught me about building things, and destroying them." The words hung heavy in the air. Amara looked up, sensing a shadow behind the calm. "That sounds like a story." "It is," Ethan replied. "But it's not one I'm proud of." She leaned back on the stool. "Sometimes those are the ones worth telling." Ethan met her gaze then, for a fraction of a second, his walls trembled. She saw something human, raw, almost haunted. But before she could say anything more, Mr. Daniels called from the office, breaking the moment. Later that evening, Ethan found her outside the garage, sketching designs in her notebook. The sun was melting into gold over the horizon, the world painted in warmth. "You draw cars?" he asked gently. Amara looked up, startled. Yeah. Used to dream about designing them, before life got in the way. What stopped you? She gave a bitter laugh. Bills? Responsibilities? The fact that dreams don't pay rent. He sat beside her, wiping grease from his hands. Maybe not. But they remind you why you started. For a while they just sat there, the silence soft but full of meaning. Then softly Amara asked, "So what did you leave behind, Blake? You talk like someone who lost something bigger than money." Ethan's hand tightened around his rag. His pulse quickened. "I left behind a version of me I didn't like," he said finally. "The kind that smiles for cameras and forgets how to look in the mirror." She nodded slowly, watching his eyes. "Then maybe this version of you deserves a second chance." Her words pierced deeper than she knew. Ethan looked away, hiding the storm brewing behind his calm expression. Because the truth was, she was already falling for the lie. As the night deepened, Mr. Daniels turned off the lights inside, glancing out at the two silhouettes beneath the street lamp, one sketching dreams, the other hiding truth. He muttered under his breath, uneasy. Nothing good ever starts this quietly. The faint roll of thunder in the distance seemed to agree. The next morning dawned brighter than usual, the kind of day that tricks you into thinking peace might last forever. The garage smelled of oil and sunlight, and Ethan found himself humming softly, something he hadn't done since before the empire, before the lies. Amara entered with 2 cups of coffee. "You sing now," she teased. He smiled. "Only when I forget I'm supposed to be serious." "Then don't stop," she said. "You're more real that way." Those words, "you're more real that way," hit deeper than she knew. Because Ethan's entire life was a performance, a billionaire's guilt disguised as humility. But here, with her, he could pretend to be human again. Over the weeks, their rhythm found a pulse. They worked side by side, fixing engines, laughing at grease-stained jokes, stealing glances that lingered too long. When the radio played slow songs from the 80s, Amara would tap her pen on the counter, and Ethan would time his wrench twists to the beat. But not everyone found it charming. A local mechanic named Liam, who had quietly adored Amara for years, watched from the corner of the shop, his eyes burning with suspicion. To him, Ethan was too polished, too perfect, too clean. One afternoon he pulled Amara aside. "You really trust that guy?" he whispered. Amara frowned. "Why wouldn't I?" "Because no one just shows up here out of nowhere, fixes cars like a pro, and knows nothing about his past. He's hiding something." Amara crossed her arms. "You're jealous, Liam?" "Maybe," he said. "But when the truth comes out, don't say I didn't warn you." That night, Ethan and Amara walked home under the soft glow of streetlights. Their laughter echoed in the quiet town. He carried her toolbox, she carried the kind of joy that made her forget pain. At one point she stopped walking and turned to him. "You know, Blake, sometimes I wish life could stay this simple." Ethan looked at her, really looked, the wind brushing her hair across her face. "Simplicity's underrated," he said softly. "But it doesn't last." She smiled faintly. "Then maybe we should hold on to it before it slips away." And without warning she kissed him, brief, hesitant, electric. The world seemed to stop. For the first time in years, Ethan forgot about money, power, and his hidden life. But even in that perfect moment, guilt whispered in his chest. "What happens when she learns who you really are?" He pulled away slowly, his voice barely a whisper. "Amara, there's something I—" But before he could finish, headlights flashed down the street. A black SUV stopped nearby, tinted windows, city plates, and a gloved hand resting on the wheel. Ethan's heart dropped. He knew that car. It was from his world, the one he swore he left behind. Amara noticed the sudden fear in his eyes. "What's wrong?" she asked. Ethan forced a smile. "Nothing. Just thought I saw a ghost." She laughed softly, unaware that she just had. The next morning, Ethan woke up with the same chill that haunted him since the SUV sighting. For the first time in months he didn't feel free, he felt watched. From the small window above his cot, he could see the quiet main road of Rockwell, but his mind replayed the glimpse of that black car over and over again. The driver hadn't stepped out, hadn't spoken, but Ethan knew the type, men who obeyed money, not morals. He whispered to himself, "They found me." But before he could dwell, Mr. Daniels' voice echoed through the garage. "Blake, we've got a rush job. Customers waiting." Ethan wiped his face, put on a fake smile, and walked out, but Amara saw through it instantly. "You okay?" she asked, eyes narrowing. "Yeah, just didn't sleep much." "Liar," she said softly, smirking. "You've got that look, like your past just called." Her words hit too close. "Maybe it did," he murmured, half to himself. As the day went on, a stranger entered the shop. Well-dressed, polished shoes, expensive watch half hidden beneath his sleeve. His name was Victor Hale, a man Ethan knew far too well. Once his business partner, now his enemy. Mr. Daniels greeted him warmly, oblivious. "Morning. What can we do for you, sir?" Victor's sharp gaze landed on Ethan instantly. A faint smile curved his lips. "Just passing through," he said. "But I couldn't help noticing your mechanic looks familiar." Amara's brow furrowed. "You know Blake?" Victor stepped closer, pretending to inspect a car part. "Blake, huh? Interesting name. You've changed, Cole." Ethan's heart froze. The wrench slipped from his hand, clattering on the floor. Amara blinked. "Wait, Cole? What's he talking about?" Victor smirked. "Maybe he hasn't told you. This isn't some drifter. This is Ethan Cole, heir to Cole Industries. Billionaire. Vanished months ago. The media called it a scandal." Mr. Daniels' face fell. Amara stepped back, her jaw tightening. "Tell me he's lying," she whispered. Ethan tried to speak, tried to find words, but all that came out was the truth he'd been running from. "I didn't lie about who I am," he said weakly. "I lied about what I was." Amara's eyes burned. "You let me think you were one of us. You let my father trust you. You." "Amara, please. I didn't come here to deceive you. I came to find something real." "Real?" she spat. "You bought real, Ethan. You've never lived it." She stormed out, slamming the garage door so hard the walls shook. Victor smirked, clapping slowly. "Still good at destroying everything you touch, I see." Ethan glared. "Get out." Victor leaned closer. "You can play the poor mechanic all you want, but you can't erase your bloodline. You're a Cole. And soon, everyone here will know what that means." He left with a grin that lingered long after the door shut. That night, Ethan sat alone under the flickering workshop light, staring at the grease-stained floor where Amara had stood. He could still hear her voice trembling with betrayal. He whispered, "I wanted truth, but I gave her everything but that." Outside, thunder rolled again, louder this time, like a warning that love and lies were about to collide. By morning, Rockwell wasn't whispering, it was roaring. The news had spread faster than oil on pavement. The new mechanic wasn't a nobody. He was Ethan Cole, the missing billionaire who had once graced business magazines, whose empire had faced lawsuits, scandals, and whispers of betrayal. And now he'd been living among them, fixing their cars, eating at their diners, pretending to be one of them. Ethan walked through the streets with every stare like a dagger. Conversation stopped when he passed. Store owners closed their blinds. Even children, once waving to him, looked away. He had come here to find something pure, but now he stood in the ashes of their trust. Inside the garage, Amara was silent, working on an engine with furious precision. Each slam of the wrench echoed her rage. Mr. Daniels stood near the doorway, watching the man he'd once called son. "Why, Ethan?" he finally asked. "You could have told us." Ethan's voice was rough. "Would you have believed me?" "Would she?" Mr. Daniels sighed heavily. "Maybe not. But lies are like oil leaks, they start small, then destroy everything." Ethan swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to hurt her." "Intentions don't fix what's broken," Mr. Daniels said quietly. Amara finally looked up, eyes red, face streaked with tears she refused to wipe away. "You said you were rebuilding yourself," she said. "But you were rebuilding your image." "That's not true," Ethan said, stepping closer. "I left that world because I hated it. I wanted to feel something honest again." Her laugh was bitter. "Honest? You hid your name. You lied about who you were. You watched me open up to you, knowing the whole time you were living in disguise." "I was afraid," he said softly. "Every time I tried to tell you, I saw the look you'd give me if you knew. And now I see it." Amara's hands trembled as she turned away. "You didn't just break my trust, Ethan. You proved me right about people like you." He flinched, but she wasn't done. "I told you, I hated the rich because they play with people's lives like toys. You tried to prove me wrong. But all you did was confirm everything I believed." The words cut deep, not because they were cruel but because they were true. Outside, the clouds were darkening again. A storm gathered over Rockwell as if the sky itself mirrored their chaos. Liam, the jealous mechanic, stood by the doorway watching the scene unfold. He finally spoke, his tone sharp. "Guess I was right about you, Cole. Guess money doesn't buy morals." Ethan looked at him, tired but defiant. "No, it doesn't. But maybe it can pay for forgiveness." Liam scoffed. "Not here, it won't." When Ethan left the garage that night, lightning split the horizon. He didn't know where he was going, only that everything he had built, every small ounce of connection was now slipping through his fingers. He whispered into the rain. I came here to find love, but I found the truth instead. And somewhere behind him, unseen, Amara whispered the same words, but hers carried more pain than hope. The town gathered that evening in the small diner at the edge of Main Street, the kind of place where gossip was served hotter than coffee. Ethan sat alone at a corner booth, hat pulled low, while the air around him thickened with whispers. That's him. The billionaire. Pretended to be poor, can you believe that? He stared into his cup, hearing every word, every judgmental sigh. He had once sat at tables where people bowed to him, where power made silence his companion. But here, stripped of titles, he was the punchline to his own morality test. The door swung open. Mr. Daniels walked in, followed by Amara. Conversations froze. Every eye turned to her, the woman whose trust had been broken by a man pretending to be beneath her. Ethan rose to his feet. Amara, please. Don't, she said sharply, her voice steady but trembling at the edges. Not here. You've done enough talking. Her words were calm, but her eyes screamed pain. Mr. Daniels spoke next, his tone heavy with disappointment. You came here saying you wanted to find truth, Ethan. But truth doesn't need disguises. You hurt people who would have accepted you without your money. Ethan's throat tightened. I didn't believe that was possible anymore. Then maybe you never really knew love to begin with, Daniels replied. As the crowd murmured, the door opened again, and Victor Hale walked in, immaculate as always, his presence slicing through the tension like a blade. Well, he said with a smirk, isn't this touching? The fallen billionaire trying to find redemption among the grease and rust. Ethan glared. What are you doing here, Victor? Victor stepped forward, slipping a folded paper onto the counter. You didn't just run away from your company, Ethan. You ran from the fallout. The board wants your signature, to sell your remaining shares. Walk away quietly, and I'll make sure your name isn't dragged through every headline again. Ethan's jaw tightened. And if I don't? Victor leaned closer. Then everyone will know the real reason you disappeared, that your company's collapse wasn't an accident. Someone leaked those contracts. Someone betrayed their own investors. The crowd gasped. Ethan's fists clenched. You did that, Victor. You and the others. Victor smiled coldly. Prove it. Amara looked between them, confusion flashing in her eyes. What's he talking about? Ethan turned to her. The scandal, it wasn't what the papers said. They framed me, Amara. I lost everything because I refused to cover for corruption. Convenient story, Victor said, laughing. The noble billionaire act. Haven't you played that role long enough? Ethan took a deep breath. Maybe I have. But this time I'm not playing. He stepped forward, meeting Victor's eyes. You took my company. You took my name. But you're not taking the one thing I came here to find again. Victor smirked. And what's that? Ethan looked at Amara, eyes full of pain, regret, and truth. My soul. The storm didn't stop that night, it only got louder. Rain lashed the windows of the garage as Ethan worked alone, drenched in guilt and grease, trying to fix an engine that wasn't broken, because it was easier than fixing himself. Every drop that hit the roof sounded like Amara's voice replaying in his head. You proved me right about people like you. He whispered into the empty room. I just wanted to be seen, without the name, without the money. Just me. But the silence didn't answer. Amara sat at home, staring at her sketchbook. Every page she turned was filled with cars she'd designed for a dream that had died long before Ethan showed up. She wanted to hate him. She really did. But under all the anger, something else pulsed. Confusion. Doubt. The memory of how he'd held her when she cried, the look in his eyes when he said he'd lost himself. Her father's voice broke through her thoughts. You still thinking about him? She didn't answer. Mr. Daniels sighed, sitting across from her. You remind me of your mother, you know. Forgiving to a fault. She forgave because she believed people could change. He nodded. Maybe. But forgiveness doesn't mean trust. It means peace. Amara closed the sketchbook. Then maybe I need both. The next morning she found Ethan still in the garage, asleep at the workbench. His clothes were soaked, his eyes hollow. He woke with a start when she entered. Amara? Don't talk, she said gently. Just listen. He froze. She took a deep breath. I don't know what's true and what's not anymore. But I saw the look in your eyes when that man came. You weren't lying about everything. You were scared. Ethan's voice broke. Because I knew what Victor would do. He wants to destroy me, and anyone who believes in me. Why? Because I exposed him years ago. He was embezzling funds from our company charity foundation. He swore revenge the day I turned him in. Amara stepped closer. Then why hide here? Because after he framed me, I wanted to disappear. I wanted to start over somewhere no one cared about my name. Her expression softened, but not fully. You could have told me. I wanted to. Every day. But I was afraid you'd stop seeing me as me. For a long time she said nothing. The rain outside had stopped, leaving only the sound of their breathing. Finally, Amara whispered, "You were right about one thing, Ethan. Sometimes all something needs is a second chance." He looked up, searching her face. "But," she continued, "if I'm giving you that, I need to know this time, there's nothing left to hide." Ethan hesitated, the faintest flicker of fear crossing his face. "Nothing," he said. She smiled sadly. "Then maybe we can start over." As she walked out, Ethan exhaled, relieved, but the flicker of fear remained in his eyes. Because there was something left to hide. Something even he didn't fully understand yet. And that secret would soon turn everything upside down. Ethan stood in the driveway of the old garage, the morning sun breaking through silver clouds. For the first time in weeks, peace seemed possible. Amara had given him forgiveness, or at least a bridge toward it. But peace never lasts when lies still breathe. His phone buzzed. A known number. He hesitated before answering. "You can't hide behind your little fairy tale anymore," said a voice. Cold. Smooth. "It's time the world sees who you really are." Ethan froze. "Victor. Check your email, Ethan." The line went dead. He opened his inbox and there it was. Breaking news. Billionaire Ethan Cole exposed as fraud, secret identity revealed. His heart dropped. Photos of him at the garage. Of Amara. Of them together. The headline twisted everything, making it look like he'd used her for a PR stunt. Within minutes, the media swarmed. Cameras. Reporters. Questions that cut like knives. "Mr. Cole, did you manipulate the mechanic's daughter for sympathy? Is this all part of your new brand campaign?" Amara stepped out of the shop, confusion morphing into horror as she read the headlines. "Ethan, what did you do?" He tried to speak. "Amara, I didn't." "Stop." She backed away. "You said there was nothing left to hide." "I swear I didn't leak this." "Then who did?" Before he could answer, a black car pulled up. The door opened, and to everyone's shock, Mr. Daniels stepped out. Amara's father. "Dad?" she whispered. But his face wasn't kind this time. It was hard. Calculated. "I warned you, Amara. Men like him destroy everything they touch." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You?" Mr. Daniels smirked. "Did you really think a billionaire hiding in my small town could escape notice? You ruined my company years ago, Ethan. You exposed me, not Victor." The words hit like thunder. Amara's world tilted. "What are you talking about?" Ethan's voice was raw. "Your father embezzled funds from the very foundation I built for workers. I didn't know he was your father until I met you." Mr. Daniels laughed darkly. "And yet you kept it secret. What? Guilt? Well, or both?" Amara's tears spilled. "Dad, is this true?" He turned to her, but didn't answer. His silence was enough. Cameras rolled. The world watched. Ethan took a breath, stepping closer to Amara. "I came here running from lies. But maybe I was meant to find you so the truth could finally surface, all of it." He looked straight into the camera lenses. "This isn't about money or power. It's about redemption. And if that means the world sees me broken, so be it." The crowd hushed. Mr. Daniels' face hardened. Then, without a word, he turned and walked away as police cars pulled up behind him. Someone, maybe Victor, maybe fate, had turned him in. Amara stood frozen. She looked at Ethan, bruised, betrayed, but still standing. Her voice trembled. "After all this, how do I even know what's real?" He took her hand quietly. "Maybe that's the point, Amara. Love isn't about knowing everything. It's about choosing who you believe, when everything else falls apart." As the police led her father away, Amara looked back one last time, at the man who came to her town pretending to be poor, only to expose the real poverty of truth. But just before the final fade, the camera lingered on Ethan's face. His phone buzzed again. A single message. "Game not over, V." His smile faltered. The screen cut to black.